Hello, everyone. My name is Pier Giacomo Palmisani. I'm the Vice President of the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation, also known as BAF. Today, I'm very excited to be here with the Carnegie Mellon Blockchain Group and Evan Shapiro, CEO of Mina Protocol. Mina is one of the hottest projects right now in the space, given the recent token sale, and we're very excited to talk to Evan. Just a little bit of housekeeping and general information about BAF. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that works with universities in the US and around the world to start accredited blockchain courses, just promote general education around blockchain. We run events, we work on projects together, we apply to grants, we also place people at jobs in the industry. If you want to get more involved with what we do, I'm dropping here some links. There's our membership application that you can take to become a BAF member for free. Also, please follow us on YouTube, where we post all of our events. We'll be posting the recording of this event as well. Other than that, guys, you can take it away. I'll be seeing you at the end of the event. Enjoy.
Cool. So thanks so much for being here, Evan, and congratulations on a successful token sale. We'll have questions and answers at the end, so I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions about that. So Hope, Lev, and I are current Carnegie Mellon students, and we're probably a fact that is only interesting to the three of us is that you are also a graduate of Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thanks for having me on. Also, probably a fact only interesting to three of us. I think it's really cool to see blockchain stuff happening at CMU now. It was really small when I was there. So
yeah, definitely growing now. So to kick it off, let's just start with some context setting. On a high level, you know, a lot of these ecosystems are gaining traction now. What are some of the problems that you see with the existing solutions?
Yeah, so me and my friend slash co-founder got into the space because of what we saw as a technical problem in the space, which is this kind of technical property of blockchains that if you want to get the full security properties of them, you have to download the whole chain. You have to download all these transactions. You have to download all of this data. And it felt to us like that was, well, kind of like a runaway train to eventual problems, that as these chains, even at a low throughput over a long period of time, get very, very large and hard for users to get these full security properties. And then additionally, if you want to increase the throughput, it just makes it so you get to these problems faster and faster. So we started thinking about this very I guess now it feels relatively early, early 2017, when Bitcoin was starting to think about whether they were going to increase their block size or not, which eventually resulted in the Bitcoin Cash split. And we were thinking of what can be done to kind of address this kind of underlying technical thing about blockchains, that they grow and grow and grow. And if you want to get the full security properties, you have to download all of that. So it was kind of born out of us thinking through that problem, just as fun research on the side for us.
Yeah, totally. A lot with scalability, also with security, and a lot of the solutions now also have questions about the level of decentralization they offer. So why don't you give a quick intro into Mina and maybe how, at a high level, it addresses some of those problems?
Yeah, so the solution we ended up coming to was, this is fortunately at the time, my co-founder Izzy was doing a PhD at Berkeley in cryptography, and what we were able to figure out was that you could use zero knowledge proofs to provide a proof that stands in for all of this ever-growing data, that you could recursively update you can produce a proof of whatever the current chain is, and then recursively, sort of inductively grow the chain with a new proof that builds off the previous proof. And because these proofs are recursive, the whole proof is only ever a few kilobytes in size, and gives you a full proof of the correctness of consensus and of the Merkle root of the current ledger, which you can then use to prove particular accounts.
So sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
I guess a big question that I have regarding to this is, how do you view the history of some transaction after it has been proved, after the new blocks has been validated?
Yeah, so there's a couple. So if you want to see the history of like transactions, basically there's a couple things going on. There's a technical measure that just kind of gives you it. Like, I'll give a technical answer to this. So if you look at the Merkle root down to particular accounts, once you have a particular account, there is another field in that account, which is a hash of the history of the transactions in that account. So if you want to prove any, so as a user, you send a transaction, your device stores locally that transaction, and then you can prove it at any point to anybody else by giving them the proof basically of that receipt chain back to like the transaction you care about. It's kind of a different model than other chains where everyone just stores everything. Instead, it's more selective model. Like if I only care about my account and a few other accounts, I can store the transactions for those, but nothing else. I do want to store everything forever because like, I don't know, maybe I want to be able to run analysis on the chain, I can do that as well. Or if I just care about like my balance right now, I can just get that too. But there's like this selectivity over how much data you actually want to bring in.
So along those lines, can you explain how zero knowledge proofs and what they are and how they help Mina achieve this?
Yeah, so they're this like very cool piece of cryptography. They are, so basically what a zero knowledge proof is it's a proof of a computation that has particular properties around it. I mean, if I told you like, hey, if you run this program with this input, you'll get this output. One way you could figure that out is by just running that program yourself on your own hardware. And you could say, okay, I ran the program with that input, I got that particular output, great. Zero knowledge proofs gives you a way to kind of get around that when some of the data that you want to input is private or the computation itself is very large. So for example, you have use cases like Zcash or some things we're working on right now around credit scores that you have some data that you want to put on chain, but you don't want to reveal that actual data. Instead, you can say like, there exists some data which matches this property that then you can put the proof of that property on chain. Or like Mina's doing for the whole blockchain, you can say, you know, you could download all these blocks and, you know, run this program to check it all, but instead you can look at this proof and the proof is cryptographically equivalent to running that computation yourself. So the proof can directly stand in for computations, for proofs of data. And that's basically what zero knowledge proofs let you do. These sets of possible powerful properties.
Yeah, and that's what really leads. Sorry, I echo myself.
So I guess going off of that, could you also explain what are ZK SNARKs? Yes.
So ZK SNARKs are a particular like type of zero knowledge proof that have, let's see if I can remember the things, succinctness, non-interactive arguments of knowledge. So the very cool thing about them in particular is that they are succinct. So you could imagine that I could be able to provide proofs of computations to people that hide the data, but the proofs maybe are either proportional to like the number of bytes of code in the program, they're proportional to how long it takes to run the program, proportional to the size of the inputs. So no, with SNARKs, they are always the same size, independent of any of that stuff, which you might think like, wow, like that's a crazy cryptographic property. One way this is kind of often compared is like the same way that no matter how big a data object is, you can always have a hash, which like attests to the existence of that object. And you can prove later, hey, like this data matches that hash. There's kind of a similar thing going on with SNARKs where you can get this succinctness property, even if the computation is very large or there's a lot of data.
So a question from the chat following up on that is, if a bunch of validator nodes go offline, will that break will that not break the chain then?
Only in the same way that that's the same as like other chains. Like you can kind of think of it that joining Mina as a validator node, you have to download like the current set of accounts, but not the history of those accounts. You just have to do like the current values. So only in the same way that like the same way other chains work, where as long as you have like consensus working, then you're going to be in a position where the chain will work also. And if you were like I can imagine a failure case here. Like I don't know if this gets exactly the question, but like let's say like everyone went offline and they like deleted their hard drives. Like yes, that would like cause data loss in Mina, but like in the same way as any other chain, we don't have a solution, magic solution to that one. But, like, yeah.
Awesome. I just want to make sure I'm not echoing. So to get more concrete into the use cases, Mina ideally would be an ecosystem, correct?
Yeah.
So what we found really interesting from the documents are these 3 use cases that you guys have highlighted. Maybe some of them are in pilot stage, some of them might just be in development or not quite yet ready. But I was thinking we could kind of talk through each one and you can kind of explain what your ideas would be for each.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first is end-to-end data privacy from online to on-chain. And maybe more specifically with the example pilot that you guys have with Teller Finance. Could you explain what's going on there?
Yes, let me share, I guess, like both that particular, and then I'll share like kind of like the grander vision for what's like maybe possible with this, like the hopefully nearest future. So what we're working on with Teller is basically Teller is working on doing uncollateralized loans on crypto. And to do that, you need to start thinking about, well, if I don't have a bunch of collateral, what else can I like put on chain to help me give some assurance about this loan? But if I start putting people's social security numbers, their credit scores, all this information on chain, well, probably no one's going to use the product because no one wants all that information out in the open and public. At the same time, if you just do it in a fully centralized way, you're also kind of like not really building on crypto at that point.
Right.
So what can we do to solve this? What we've been building with is basically on top of Mina, this platform called Snaps, where it's like snarkified applications. And this gives developers access to all the snark tools that we use underlying Mina for like their own applications. And the cool thing here is that you can use Snaps to produce proofs of data off chain. In this case, from like a HTTPS enabled website, Credit Karma, and you can put that proof on chain such that you don't put the actual data on chain, you put a proof of that data on chain. And that enables a company like Teller to say, okay, like I'm making a smart contract. When that smart contract sees a proof of someone, it requires a proof of someone's credit score being greater than 700 or something like that, then it can start changing its behavior based on that proof of data. And you don't have to reveal the actual data itself on chain. So what's cool here is when we're thinking of like DeFi and all these other things going on crypto right now, it's kind of limited to within crypto, but there's, I think, a really big opportunity if we can start kind of like connecting that out to like the broader worlds. And we hope that like through some of this like work on Snaps, we're going to be able to do that by bridging like HTTPS websites with crypto and bringing that data online. I want to mention as well, like I think this is personally interesting to me. Like I think there's like, I'm very excited about the possibility of taking this outside of just like DeFi and like current crypto applications, because I think like in general, there's like a huge problem right now on the internet of like data privacy, and like the ways in which we kind of interact with these applications is pretty extractive. And I don't know, like, my dreams and goals are like, one day like this will happen on Mina, but like in general, I think zero knowledge proofs can like kind of give users like a force to fight back against that, and to have some guarantees about their privacy when they interact with these like big, corporations that are.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's crazy to think how much we've normalized giving away our information. Just yesterday, I was trying to sign up for a COVID vaccine appointment, and I did have to provide my social security information, which I don't think would be required.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing there, but like, yeah.
Given how unsecure social security is as well. Also, so you mentioned proving certain data on HTTPS. How does a snark or a snap code about doing that?
Yes, so there's a few. So what's nice is that HTTPS gives us some cryptographic information about a user connecting to a website, negotiating with a server, getting back information from that server, and having some proof of authenticity over that connection and that data from the website. What's less nice is that the way the protocol works internally is that a third party doesn't know exactly, can't immediately observe that transcript and get a proof that that transcript is actually correct. So what we do is we have an architecture where there's this 3 roles. There's like the server, the user, and a notary. And the user talks to both the notary and the server in such a way that it's able to produce like a transcript of like, here's all the communications I had with all these parties, that with like pretty minor assumptions, you can say that here is a proof that I talked to this website at this time, information in this way. There are some more technical details to get into this. And if you want to be like super secure, like one thing we're working on is talking to like K notaries instead of just one, to like lower the, increase the, basically creating a situation where all the notaries would have to defect to be able to do anything, which would already be hard in like the scenario we're building for one notary. But basically, like you can imagine this as the trust model is like you have some K notaries, a smart contract chooses like, hey, these are like the K notaries I need to see notarized proofs from. If any of those defect, like all of them would have to collude in order for like the smart contract to be tricked. And this allows 2 pretty cool things. One is that trust model is like much better than just like, let's like trust some economically incentivized random actor. It's like actually has some real cryptography behind it. But 2, it allows like a developer to use a system with like any website on the internet. So these notaries can be independent. And in fact, they don't even get to see anything happening in terms of like what website they're being connected to. So this could be like a very scalable way to start bringing on, like we're using Credit Karma in this case, but really any website on the internet, making just a library, which is like import like proof of fact from website, and you can get access to that in crypto.
Moving on to the next use case, which is the Prometheus web oracles. Do you think you guys are a competitor to Chainlink, and what are some concerns with that?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of just the thing I was just talking about with like these K notaries, and you have to corrupt all of them and whatnot. I think that it's sort of, in a sense, it sort of is. In a sense, it's sort of not. Like I think it is in the sense that like they can provide similar kind of like end functionality to smart contracts and users on chain. I think it's different in that because we've embedded snarks into these, and because of the way it works with like these websites and notaries, you get a much stronger proof that like whatever these, these web oracles are saying is actually happening on the internet is actually what's happening. So that's like a pretty big difference compared to just like trusting an economically incentivized actor. Additionally, you can, as a user, submit information privately through these. So as a user, when you use like the thing we're working on with Teller, you go to this website and you produce this proof locally, and you send the proof out to the chain. And through that process, you're not revealing anything, but you're able to prove a fact about the website without revealing it on chain, which this privacy component is not something on there right now. As well as lastly, just kind of connecting to all the websites like I mentioned. I think it kind of depends, like whether like they end up being like actual competitors or not. Like I see this like being something that like initially is used by like mostly like hobbyists and like new companies to like pull in like this new wave of information into crypto in a way that wasn't possible before. And whether that ends up like kind of like, conflicting or not with like Chainlink, I have like no idea, but definitely like overlapping like tech and like use case kind of thing in terms of putting this data on chain.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the third use case, you mind explaining how one private internet login would work?
Yes. So the version I'll explain, I think is pretty cool. So let's say that you're like a user, you've been using MetaMask, you like, you're like seed, your seed list written down somewhere, and you try not to lose that. And that's how you're interacting with crypto. What we can imagine instead is building Snapp accounts that use proofs of login to, basically like the version I'm adding is proof of login to email. And you can prove that you can log into an email, and you can use that to access your like wallet on Mina. So now we're in a world where you have like an account on crypto, but you don't have any private key behind it, but also it's still private and secure. So I think that's like Age is like really awesome by itself, because like I think like there's still in crypto, like this huge kind of barrier where like, do I want to just use like Coinbase or something centralized, but then like I don't have to worry about a private key, or do I just use a private key and like kind of like hope I don't mess it up? There's like maybe something else we can do in the middle, which is using these proofs to like get access to accounts with privacy. Now, this can kind of, I guess, branch in two different ways. So one is using this as like basically your like, your single sign-on passport to like websites. So instead of signing in through like, oh, I'm going to choose like Google to log in with or whatever, you could instead say, I'm going to prove that I have access to this account on Mina by, producing a proof separately with like this Snapp login thing with my email that I don't share with anyone, proving I have access to this public key. And then I can sign in with that to websites. Additionally, you could then use that to send transactions and end up in a world where like you can have accounts that are used to sign into internet websites, and also give internet websites proofs of things that are happening on chain, and then also give users access to crypto through that. So I don't know, I think that's like a broader vision than just kind of like single sign-on login, but that's like what I think I'm excited about with it. I don't like MetaMask, and I would like something else.
Yeah, totally. And that's something that's understandable to everyone too. I mean, right now with single sign-on, you have to choose the lesser of all evils between Google, Facebook, and now Apple, I guess. Having a separate or another option would be great.
Yep.
And then we also wanted to touch a little bit on Mina's community. So Mina has been super popular, and for the state or the stage that it's at, I think I was just really surprised to find out that you guys have a huge community on Telegram, on Discord. What do you think has contributed to all the interest right now?
Yeah, honestly, I've been blown away by it. Like, I think it's, this is like gonna be a little cliche, but like we just like really authentically wanted people to like get involved in a deep way and then like get ownership for doing that, and people wanted to be involved in that.
And can you explain how people are getting involved? Are they spinning up nodes? Are they, what kind of roles are the people in the community playing?
Yeah, so it's mostly on the like tooling and developer, like sorry, not developer, the tooling developers, and then also on the node operator front right now. So we very early on started this program we called like Genesis, which like gave out like grants to be block producers on Mina. And we built like a pretty big group of people like building like the node operator community with us that way. And a lot of those people have gone on to be building tools, but for like other node operators, for the project, building mobile wallets, building all these other things on top of the ecosystem. So I think like that program has kind of just been like, hey, like, get part of this thing, like help secure the network, and that's kind of like built the space through which like things are now building off of. We also like just recently like inducted a lot of other people into like grants on the protocol and the community through people that have just like been participating like less so than like our Genesis members that have been like super committed, and like every single testnet they like show up, they do like a lot, they like build a lot of tools, they like help the community out. Like people that have been like one level below that, which is like still like a huge level of contributions, like for them to like be involved that way also. I think in general also like people have like kind of both like I think in general we've been able to build like a large kind of more general community off of that, and like it's something that like is new to the project as like we have gone to like launch and mainnet and everything, and I'm really excited to seeing like what we can like kind of build together as like people that just like don't just like own a token and participate in like channels, but like can really help us like build stuff. Like what can we all do together if like we all like put our time and our resources into building this thing? Can we build something that's like really special and differentiated and value add not just in like a kind of capitalist way, but value add in like can we actually make the world like a better place kind of sense of it. But yeah.
So if I want to build something on Mina right now, what are some of the general steps I should take?
Yes, so I think that like if you actually wanted to like go like really build something, you would go to like our Discord and you would just like get a sense of what the community is like there. And there's like a lot of, I think, both like requests and people working on like different tools right now for node operators. It's really easy to run a node on Mina because it doesn't have to download all this history. But it's still new, so like there's still like a lot of tools to build out for it. We also have this thing called like the Snarketplace, which like is a kind of market to buy and sell the snarks that make the chain really small. So there's like potentially things to work on tooling wise there as well. I think that the kind of like bigger like floodgates part of this though is like we're going to soon have things available for start building on snaps, and we want to like start collaborating with the community on what is it like to build a snap. Like, is building a snap like, what can we do to make that really easy, to make this kind of like honestly like kind of new programming paradigm of saying that here's a program which proves the existence of a data but doesn't reveal the actual data. Like there's like a really kind of cool functional programming-y like kind of construct to deal with that, but like how do we like start making it easy for developers to start using? And I think that that'll happen in a few months, and that'll be like a bigger chance to start getting involved.
Yeah. Are you guys fostering any learning or education opportunities or bounties to the community?
Yeah, so we have like webinars and like learning opportunities for the protocol generally every like I want to say week or two right now. And people are just feeling happy to ask questions. We're working right now on like what it will look like to have like this kind of broader like educational and like collaborative opportunity on building out snaps. Like it's still like, kind of in the works of what we're going to do for it, but like, I think it's going to be really exciting. And I think like a big role of ours is to like help kind of educate everyone and bring them in as both like new people for the community and people that can also help others learn. And I think we'll have a really good way of doing that with Snap soon, but it's still, a few months out.
Are there any snaps that you're dying to see people get started on, or any use cases you think that would fit perfectly?
I mean, I think there's some obvious ones in DeFi around some of the stuff we talked about, like in terms of breaking credit scores on chain, proofs of other financial transactions on chain. Let me mention like two I'm like pretty excited about. Like one is like kind of probably real, other one's kind of dumb, but like I think it's interesting to think about. One is like you could potentially think of building like sort of like an exchange where you prove facts about offline transactions, like kind of traditional transactions like on Venmo or something like that, in conjunction with things actually happening on chain, to like build like a kind of like fiat on-ramp that like is kind of self-custodied or something in some way, maybe with like proofs of KYC if you want to do that as well, but like don't revealing the actual underlying information behind the KYC. You build like this kind of like decentralized exchange architecture that's not just a DEX on chain, but also like a DEX between like if you don't have any crypto yet and getting crypto. That's like maybe like probably like a bunch of snaps put together, but I think that'd be really cool. The other one I mentioned is kind of dumb, like, but I think it's kind of funny and interesting to think about is like building a snap that connects to like a social platform like Twitter, and just having like snap bounties or like interactions on like people doing funny things on Twitter. Like someone, like the first person that like gets 10,000 likes on a tweet that says pizza is going to get pizza coin. I don't know. Or really like more seriously, actually, I'm thinking about like more like a properly decentralized, non-exploitive BitClout. If people have been following the BitClout drama, like you could build something where proofs of tweets go on chain, but only the owner can claim those tweets. Yeah, something like that. I think those would be cool. Yeah.
That'd be incredible. Somebody could claim that they originated the meme. But so along those lines, you mentioned like KYC, but keeping it private and everything. And earlier talking about the broader social implications of snarks. So from here, your general thoughts on how snarks can impact society, and I guess to what degree they can overturn it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they really do fit like the cliche of like it's a tool, and like how you use it is going to like determine if it's good or bad. I mentioned some bad things or good things first. Let's start with good things. I think like I personally feel like there's like an asymmetry right now. I think this is just probably more agreeable. There's like a consensus. There's like there's like an asymmetry right now between users and the companies they like kind of connect to and use online. Like, you know, you use Facebook or Gmail or whatever, and like you're trying to get something out of it, and like they're trying to get something out of you for using it, and like people are becoming, I think, aware of this, and it's like not a healthy dynamic. And I think that we're like, you know, humans, and like we're like, you know, in these like biological forms, we're probably not going to like get that much more leverage over these computers, but they're just going to like keep getting better at artificial intelligence, getting better at new models of extracting value, you know, capitalist, you know, profitable value out of users. So I see zero-knowledge proofs potentially as like a way to kind of balance that out a little bit, so you can have like some guarantees about how you're interacting with these entities, so that you can say that, hey, like I'm going to give you the data you need to do the thing that I need you to do, but you know you're not going to be able to do anything evil with that. I'm like pretty convinced that I've constrained the, you know, your ability to deal with this, you know, proof of my medical records or something that I want to put on, that I want to use for a program. And I think in general also, like, there's kind of an environment right now, it feels to me, where like people are starting to think about using digital systems to exploit trust in really substantial ways. Like if I have like a profile picture of like someone that looks friendly and like they you know, seem to agree with me and they're posting something, like that is a potential weapon that can be used by companies, by nation states, in ways that are honestly like very scary, at least to me, very scary. And I think it's a like pretty early, at least thinking about this, but I do like to think that zero knowledge proofs, through this ability to prove things succinctly without you having to go like check a bunch of things, prove things with having some privacy, potentially restore some element of trust through the very tools that are sort of removing that trust right now from the ways we're interacting. So I think that there's like huge potential there for zero knowledge proofs to be like kind of an emerging technology that pushes back against a lot of the negative trends we're seeing right now. I'll stop there and then I'll jump onto the maybe bad things that could happen as well.
Sure, and what are the bad things? How far does your mind roam?
So, I mean, I think for me, like the biggest concern is just kind of like, I think like we all talk about privacy like it's this like great thing, and I think it is for individuals, but is privacy a great thing for corporations? Is it a great thing for like the ultra wealthy? Like maybe not. Is it a great thing for a governing system? If in the future one of these projects has the governance token private and you don't even know who owns that token, like it's unclear to me. In fact, probably I think it is probably a potentially negative thing to like just kind of like have perfect privacy for where there's already huge asymmetries of power between different groups, people, and companies and individuals. And I could imagine zero knowledge proofs being a way to like not just like flip the scales, but completely shut transparency out of the equation. So I think that's like the thing to watch out for is like, I think transparency is there's like a flip side to like we want privacy because we don't want to be exploited, but we also want transparency so that we have awareness and kind of give feedback and be part of these systems in our lives. And I think zero knowledge proofs have both sides of that coin.
Yeah, that's so true. We like to think that ideally people would act in good faith, but that's not always the case. And there needs to be some way some people can be accountable. Another thing was, sorry, I just lost my place. The larger implications of being able to store the entire blockchain in such a small size. So right now there are a lot of constraints. There's financial constraints. There's also compute power constraints with a lot of the existing solutions. What are the larger implications of being able to do everything on a smartphone, which is the most popular device now across the world?
Yeah, I think that once you have like fully permissionless, like kind of trustless crypto built into like everyone's phones and browsers through succinct blockchains like Mina, or well, we'll see, maybe just Mina, you're in a position suddenly where a lot of the primitives we talked about a minute ago, like for like either of these features are just like suddenly available in like a really big way to everyone. Like you could imagine, for example, this is just like part of your browser and it tells you whether websites are secure or like what the web of trust is around it. or just that when you interact with the website, you can have an option to submit things with snarks. I think in general, though, it ensures that crypto systems continue to be like fully
Right.
democratic and not governed by like I think like I think a great case study in this is like people were noticing that like Ethereum and Bitcoin weren't increasing their throughput. Let's just do it. Let's just do like EOS and Tron and like make throughput really huge. And what you end up with then is like this very small council of people that are running the chain. And I think that like the large implications are the possibility of like having a high throughput chain that everyone can access and get access to these primitives that is controlled by everyone. And yes, I mean, I think that we're kind of like privileged in like these early crypto days that like we haven't had to think about that like as individuals we can get access. Like I did at CMU, for example, like one of my friends like had a mining rig like in his dorm room, and like that was a thing he did and it was cool. And I think that's like a privilege as being early in the space that we're able to think about things like that. But if crypto, I think, is becoming more and more establishment, and there needs to be a way for users to like kind of still have transparency and control over what's happening. And I think that's like what I hope Mina can kind of help balance out in the long term. I don't know if that answers it.
So the answer is Mina is the solution.
I do have like
so.
an extension question on top of that. Do you think staking and reward system of Mina can help with the problem that you just described?
Which part particular? Like just like users not getting access, I guess, to like being able to be part of the system?
Right. Yes. So you know how there's rewards that for people who stake in the blockchain, and so like with that, do you think it will help with the incentives or the motivation on certain actions?
Yeah. I think yes. I think that we've done a couple things with Mina's like core technology to help with this, and there's a couple like bigger questions that are still left that we're starting to think about. I think that for one, what we've done with Mina is we've like made it so there's no slashing, and also there's no threshold to being a staking node. So if you really wanted to, you could like have one Mina, you could like run a staking node. Like I think your odds of winning a block are not going to be very good. So like I wouldn't recommend one Mina, but like with a small number of Mina and no risk of slashing, you can participate on this network. And I think through things like the Genesis program, we've already started doing that. We've expanding the number of block producers, but like the goal is like that, you know, the 700 or so we have right now is the beginning. We have like much more. I think that eventually though, you get into like this question of like, what should be kind of like the thing that verifies using the chain. And like, I don't see a route that's exactly yet. This is like for someone else to work on probably, or us to like help figure out in some way. Like, I feel like probably in the end, you want like identity to be the control for a more democratic way of running chains. But at the moment, like, you know, capital's okay for that. And I think like we can get like most of the way there at the moment anyway for that.
Yeah, totally. So one last question before we transition into audience questions. If Mina protocol succeeds and it becomes this large ecosystem, what do you think happens with existing ones like Ethereum? Do you think they eventually die, or is there a world where you can coexist with other ones?
I think it depends. I think in like the short to medium term, and by that I mean like, you know, probably at least 5 years, like definitely coexist. Like we see ourselves as like probably, you know, at least for now, like just kind of like helping these other chains bring privacy online, bring accessibility online through the small chain. I think the question becomes like, can these other chains, like A, like, does it turn out these features are like super valuable and useful in the ecosystem? And B, do other chains manage to evolve fast enough to catch up to those feature sets that are looking important? I don't have answers to this, but I do think like at the end you do have kind of like a power law, and I don't think it's like necessarily the case that like, you know, Ethereum is winning now, so it wins later. Like a lot of the times I think you see like early players get disrupted. I don't have a real answer though, because I don't really know yet. I definitely kind of want to believe that that'll be us, because I do think we have the right technical foundation to do it. We have the right community foundation to do it. I think we have the right things to build that I think can move the space along in the right ways. But there's so many variables. It's hard to really.
Yeah, time will only tell. But for now, it seems like you guys are in a great position to start out. And a lot of the problems that are starting now with Ethereum and will only worsen dramatically in the future, you guys are addressing head on.
I say so, yes, thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into a couple of audience questions. Hope and Lev, maybe you can just call out ones that you find as well.
So yeah, there's one in the chat right now. Can a snark become corrupted on a snapshot and then wind up replicating that corruption?
So not really. So no, I mean, it's the same way that maybe an analogy here, an imperfect one, is that this is kind of similar to trying to find a hash collision for a hash function, which you can do for weaker hash functions, but snarks have been worked out by the cryptographers to be strong enough, especially with the parameters that are being used to determine the security parameter of the snarks, is that that really can't happen. That if someone, well, for the first of all, they really can't try to do it because there are formal proofs around how it would be really hard to try and do that. But you also couldn't do it accidentally because someone tries to verify it. It's just not going to verify. They're just going to say oh, it doesn't verify, and it doesn't make it into the system. Yeah.
This is interesting. What are your favorite projects using ZKPs, zero knowledge proofs? Yes.
You said favorite? Besides us. Oh, besides us, favorite. It's a good question. There are so many teams right now that are using it for privacy. I think of those I have to just give the shout out to Zcash. I think they've been doing really good work on things like Halo, on things like Zexy, that maybe one day will make it in, and I think they're actually roadmap to make it in now. That seem really promising. They've been kind of starters of the field. Yeah.
So how do you go about choosing the snark construction, and how would you plan to future-proof Mina, just how evolving the field it is?
Yes. So this question is interesting. Until a few months ago, maybe a year ago, I would have said you don't really have many options. I would have just there's options if you want quantum resistance. There's an option if you want recursion, and there's the option that's optimized if you don't care about either of those things. We're in kind of an interesting place now, it seems, where there's a lot of innovation happening to these snark constructions really, really quickly. And what I would say there's probably two primary contenders right now, and also both of these are really cutting edge. So if you were actually going to build something, you'd probably just want to do whatever's on the shelf. But if you have a cryptographer or you are a cryptographer and you want to do this, here's the two I'd recommend looking into right now. The first is our construction, Pickles. Pickles is really cool because it has recursion, but also it's very, very small. It's relatively fast. It kind of has everything together besides quantum resistance in a little package. The other option, I think, is Starks. Starks are a kind of snark, and they don't do as well with recursion, but are really good at everything else and are quantum resistant. And I believe there's work in place to try to make them better at recursion too.
So would it be possible to update what the snark is being used without a hard fork?
You would need a hard fork. So you would probably, as part of this, you would end up changing the scheme for public key for the hashing and public key cryptography. So you would basically say here's the old ledger. I'm going to construct a new ledger next to it, and I'm going to make a transaction which says move things from old ledger to new ledger. Adding all that is going to need a hard fork. Yeah.
A huge part of our community are actually students or people just trying to get involved into blockchain. What are some opportunities that Mina or O1 Labs is having right now? Are you guys hiring, taking interns, or just inviting collaborators?
Yes, I think the two right now is that we are hiring. We're hiring in technical and non-technical positions right now. Like there's a listing on the Mina Protocol website. And I think that I oftentimes like think about like what I would find cool to be working on if I like to do side projects and stuff like when I was in college as like my main extracurricular somehow. But like I think there'll be a lot of really cool opportunities with snaps to build like things that are like not just like, you know, like, oh, like we made a business, but like kind of like goofy, fun things like on top of snaps, things like pizza Twitter coin and stuff that I think once we have like a really easy way to start plugging into, like there's like a really creative space of possibilities. For example, like maybe you could have a subreddit that like is like connected to like app logic on a snap somehow, such that like, you know, I don't know exactly what you'd want to do with that, but like maybe there's something fascinating you can do around like some social game where like the last person to respond to a comment thread gets an NFT or something. I don't know, but like there's probably a lot of really creative, fun possibilities there.
Totally.
Would you consider creating a snark tank to show?
Ooh, when we have like an ecosystem thing, maybe we'll have to steal that. That's
Snark
pretty
tank,
good.
you heard it here first. So there's another one. What are Mina's short and long-term aims in the crypto world? So I'm assuming this is referring to your roadmap. Is there anything we can expect coming soon?
Yes, short-term, Mina bridge to Ethereum. We have a joint RFP out with Ethereum. If you know cryptography and snarks and you want to help do that, like please check it out. We have not selected the final like, you know, person yet to do it. So we have that RFP out, and so in the short term, Mina bridge to Ethereum, and I think applications probably primarily on Ethereum that are like kind of plugging into Mina for the privacy feature, and potentially starting to plug into websites to get like the easy accessibility feature with Mina's small zero knowledge proof. So starting to like kind of connect things up there. In the long term, I think like the goal is like this, like, you know, immensely high throughput chain that works on all of your phones and browsers. And when you build an application, you know, just like, you know, in React or JavaScript, whatever you want to do, you get access to a set of primitives that you wouldn't have had access to otherwise, which start introducing these concepts of trust and privacy back into the internet. So we can start building applications that kind of start merging with crypto and take advantage of some of those features.
And where do you see the relationship with Ethereum Foundation going in the future?
We're really, it's fun to collaborate on things like this. Like, I think as long as like there are like cool things to work on with like places, people like Ethereum, like we're happy to do it. We like want to help make the space work and be successful, and that's like our goal. And yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell, maybe some people in the chat don't know, a little bit about the community challenge?
What, the community challenge? Is that still running right now? Do we still have the community challenge running? I think we do. Natasha can chime in on the chat with details. I don't have all the details on like currently where we're at with that, with the community challenge. Yeah.
Got it. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, so if I'm a student, other people on the call are students. If you would say there's something to going into the space, any classes to take or just projects to embark on, we'd love to hear your recommendations.
Yes, I think that it really depends what you're trying to do in the space. I think if your goal is to like learn about it and like understand what's going on, I think that you kind of have a path of like reading white papers is like one. That's like what I like was doing. Like, I guess there was like less going on as well then also, but like there's a lot of white papers out there. There's like maybe too many, but there's some that are really good. And the other one is just kind of like plugging in on chain and starting to like see what it's like to start actually interacting with these technologies and to start kind of thinking of where the shortcomings are, where the next possibilities are. And I think definitely an eye towards what technologies are coming online, things like zero knowledge proofs. And like, I think this is like probably a little longer way, but like things like homomorphic encryption are really exciting things for the nearish future, hopefully, of crypto. I think it's kind of another route also where like, if you want to like build something that will get investment and potentially be a big business, like you should think about it a little differently. You should start thinking more about where, I don't know, there's a lot of like kind of cliche VC advice, I guess I would like say to go look out, but it depends what you're trying to do in this space, I think. I think there's a lot of opportunities to get involved right now because like it is very early and it's, I think increasingly clear there's like so much, things are going to move onto crypto and there's going to be a lot of opportunities to get involved in that.
Yeah, totally. And white papers is something that non-technical people can get involved with as well. That's always a question we get. If I'm non-technical, how can I still get involved? Is there a favorite white paper of yours that had maybe inspired you years ago?
I like, yes, let me mention like a couple. Like one is like I think Bitcoin's actually Ethereum. I found that white paper very early on somehow. Like I think I might have still been in high school then. So that was like really cool because I was just getting into like programming. I went to like CMU's like pre-college program then. I was like starting to like do things there. It was cool. And that was interesting. I think like as we started like getting more into like when we actually started doing the project, I read a lot of papers that like were less good, like okay, Ripple and like Nano and like IOTA and things like that. There's like a lot of bad stuff out there too. But I think like there are definitely like strong technical teams that always impressed me with like their papers, like Zcash and Starkware and kind of other cryptographic studios. I think as well, like another publisher I mentioned, like is Algorand and Avalanche. I think they're doing really interesting things on the consensus side, and I would check that out. And yes, yeah.
One question I personally have is, what is your justification for OCaml as a programming language?
Justification. Yes. So I think there's a couple. The first is that like when we started like doing the project, like we all knew OCaml and we all liked OCaml a lot. I think like, I don't know if CMU still does like SML, but like I came out of, they do, awesome, okay, it's still going. I came out of CMU knowing SML, so OCaml was easy for me to pick up. I think that the couple advantages we saw with OCaml in particular was that we really liked the kind of added features you get from functional programming. Like this is mostly like not just on like kind of, you know, static type system kind of side, like versus like Python or whatever, but like also like abstract types, also like kind of higher order functional programming things, which we found really useful for formalizing the things in Mina, because Mina is not just like it wasn't just like a fork of like Bitcoin or something we like text a bunch of. We had to like build the whole thing from the ground up, like big project, making sure we did that in a good way. And I think OCaml helped a bunch to do that. The other thing I'll mention is that CMU, like, sorry, not CMU, OCaml has like a surprising amount of like useful tools built into it. It's like, even compared to like a lot of other like functional programming languages that like you might think are like really popular or whatever, like OCaml, like I think through like Jane Street, like the country of France and like Facebook and like a bunch of other companies, like has like a pretty big community of like tools and build systems and things that mostly are pretty good. And it made it pretty reasonable to choose
Got it. So it sounds like, I don't know, are there any plans to support a different programming language, or are you all in OCaml?
we're like early stage, like talking about like a different alternative client built in Rust, and we likely, you know, fingers crossed, like almost have someone that's going to probably be doing that, which is awesome. So I think like, yes, I mean, like, I think yes in Rust, but like internally, like as like O of one, like we like OCaml and we're gonna stick with it. That said, like when we release like something like Snaps, like we're not just gonna release it in OCaml. We're gonna like do something that's a little more familiar to people, because like it's not maybe don't really need to have to like learn a whole new programming language, like especially like a functional programming language like OCaml to like start contributing to like this thing. So we're gonna make sure that's a little more accessible than our internal OCaml.
I want to say I fully support the functional. Yeah. It's good to see some functional language.
Yeah. So lastly, I just want to give you some time to speak directly to our community. So what are some calls to actions you want to let them know? Anything you want to invite them to do? So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Here's like our aim is that like we think that like crypto is a tool to enable communities, and we're gonna like make a lot more opportunities for people to like get involved in the project and help us like build something with Mina that's like a little different like than a lot of other chains, and is gonna be really collaborative and like driven by like I think like all of our kind of collective vision for it. So I don't think we have anything like right now, but like please just like if you're interested, like follow us on Twitter, like check out our channels, like there'll be things at some point, and yeah.
Totally, all good.